The Afrimat Construction Index has painted a grim picture of construction in South Africa during the second quarter. The report released this morning shows a decline to 65.4 points, well below the 100, which is the base for the index. The figures come on the back of GDP data released on Tuesday, indicating that the construction fared the worst of any sector, declining by more than 30% compared to the same quarter in 2019. To give more detail on this, we have Roelof Botha, an economist and the head of Afrimat Construction Index. So it seems to us then, Roelof, it's getting worse and worse out there in the building industry. How much worse can it get?
I don't think it'll get worse. That's the good news. We saw this coming. Construction, unfortunately, it's a reality, is a relatively small sector in terms of its value added, but it's an enabler. So if things are not happening there, then you obviously find lethargy with capital formation in many other sectors. So it would be terrific if it can recover, and there are so many positive signs. We've got no doubt that the Afrimat Construction Index will increase to above 100 again in the third quarter, and we may even hit a new record high within the 2 quarters after that.
Well, things, it appears, are getting a little bit better than as you say, but still, I'd like to know what kind of construction is on the up. I mean, if you walk around this town, you can see empty offices everywhere, empty buildings, empty factories. This new normal of working from home has taken its toll. What sort of building is on the increase?
Well, you're quite observant. Certainly, new office buildings are going to be put on hold for quite a while. But you're obviously aware of the 51 projects, the SIP, the Sustained Infrastructure Program. I believe, and I cannot confirm this yet, but I was told today by a journalist that the new residential development east of Pretoria is going to be the biggest of its kind in the Southern Hemisphere ever. And that's just one of these projects. Our president is smart enough to realize that construction is the most labor-intensive sector of the economy. There are municipal elections looming, and he is sincere about his drive to get this economy growing. And why I believe this will work and why there are better days ahead for construction is because they are doing this in partnership with the private sector. And the relationship between the private sector and government was at an all-time low during the Zuma administration. Well, more or less everything was.
And what about the cost of money? I mean, like it or not, there's a lot more risk involved these days in business because of what's been happening in this country over the last year. The cost of borrowing money is likely in the long term to be a lot more risky, a lot more expensive. How are construction companies going to get around that?
Well, right now, we've got the lowest lending rates in 50 years. And I'm convinced, if you also see what the senior official of the Reserve Bank said in this week, that we will have, we're hinted at even lower rates. I'm fairly sure that we will have low interest rates for at least a period for the next 24 to 36 months. Right now, the cost of capital and the cost of credit has come down dramatically. My middle son has a 1 million rand mortgage bond on his house. He's got 3,000 rand a month more in his pocket since the beginning of the year. And I know him, he's not going to save it. He's going to spend it. And that's good for the economy. So quite frankly, a lot of construction projects, because of the lower cost of capital, will now, their marginal returns would now have increased to such an extent that they become profitable. So, but certainly it will be sector specific. There will be a lot of construction activity on the infrastructure side, and there will also be a lot on a much lower level because tens of thousands of people are going to remain at their home offices over the next at least 12 to 24 months. But they're going to have to change these into home offices and not have the kids running around when you're busy with a Zoom interview.
What about the supply chain in construction? I mean, one of the things that's been evident in all sectors during COVID-19, because there's been a hold up in the cash, a lot of the people down the supply chains have all been closing down, packing up, moving elsewhere. How has the construction industry fared in that regard?
Well, quite frankly, backing up is not such a good idea. Very few countries are opening their gates to people from abroad. And the construction sector supply chain has the advantage that it's not ultra reliant on imports. We've got our own aggregate, we've got our own quarries. We manufacture a lot of cement, and we've got labor in abundance. So, quite frankly, this is just a brilliant sector to utilize for rapid employment creation. And that's exactly what government wants to do. And the beauty of the SIP project, the Sustainable Infrastructure Project, which is the brainchild of President Ramaphosa, is that Tito Mboweni doesn't have to worry too much about this, because the financing has been arranged in collaboration with the banks and the private sector and construction firms, obviously, with the obvious guarantee from government, but it doesn't have a significant impact in the short to medium term on National Treasury's budget.
Thank you very much indeed for those insights on the construction industry. As ever, that was Roelof Botha, an economist and head of the Afrimat Construction Index. And